He seemed like an odd piece of luggage for the All Blacks to be carrying. But they chugged along happily enough, winning plenty of games, and there were no smoke signals coming from the players that they were unhappy with the setup. Henry typically held court with the media, and as such, he was the focus of much of my writing. Hansen didn't become a greater consideration until the All Blacks endured a terrible period in 2009, when they lost 4 of their first 8 tests and seemingly couldn't win a line-out even if the opposition promised to shut their eyes and not jump. As the forwards coach, he became more integral to the narrative, which was that the All Blacks were losing their way. The onus was on Hansen to help them find it. It was the first time he was the subject of the media's ire, and he responded by fighting back. It was a self-destructive campaign. The nadir was reached after the All Blacks suffered a 3rd consecutive loss to the Box, when Hansen, a few days after the defeat, said that no one had ever built a statue of critics or wannabes. It confirmed the impression of him as a slightly oafish character, a kind of human off-road vehicle, who felt he could drive over the top of anything if he revved his engine hard enough. Some of my media colleagues reached fixed views about Hansen in 2009. They decided he was a bully and never quite forgave him for sparking a conflict that veered at times into the personal. There were heated exchanges between Hansen and journalists, angry, unproductive phone calls and curt messages passed on via the media manager. By early 2010, Hansen was a bit like the USA in Vietnam. He'd waged a war he could never win and needed to surrender without it being a big moment. There is something enormously compelling about humans who can confront their flaws and attempt to fix them, as it alludes to them having the mental strength and inner drive that can lead them to greatness. Hansen became interesting to me at this moment, because he was able to rebuild and redirect himself after taking that wrong turn. There was no peace settlement or treaty as such. It was more of a gradual withdrawal of hostilities. Hansen became less guarded and more willing to engage. He even started to show glimpses of eloquence in the way he spoke honestly about his players without letting them feel he'd betrayed their confidence. I spent that year observing Hansen more closely at press conferences. I asked to interview him more because his changed nature intrigued me, and there was increasing chatter he wanted to be the next head coach after Henry retired in 2011. I dug around a bit too, and discovered that Hansen had engaged former TVNZ chief executive Ian Fraser to help him understand and manage the media. He'd recognised where he had been failing, sought help, and changed. In October 2010, I told him I knew that he had been working with Fraser and wanted to talk to him about it. Just as I had considered Hansen a peripheral figure in my professional life, I suspect he felt the same until then. My awareness of Hansen's relationship with Fraser changed our dynamic because, I suspect, I earned his trust for not writing about it until he was ready to talk about it. He asked me to wait and promised he'd talk when he was ready. We eventually met in April 2011 at the Heritage Hotel in Auckland. He wore a light grey suit with well-polished shoes. I joked that he shouldn't have got so dressed up for me. He said he had important, possibly life-changing business to attend to after, and I decided not to ask what. He was ready to talk that day because he was ready to fill me in on the whole picture, which was that he wanted to be the next All Blacks head coach and had made significant changes since late 2009 to improve his prospects of landing that role. It's not something you set out to do when you are coaching, but the further you go along and the more rewards you get, the more you start to say, yes, that's an ambition, he said. Leading the side from the front is something different, and that is what I would one day like to end up doing with a team. And the team I would like to do that with is the All Blacks. There are people that I go to and talk to, particularly after 2009 when I was fighting the media. Rightly or wrongly, I'd had a gutsful of a lot of things, and I thought I would take them, the media, on. I found out the media are mightier than the individual, and they fought back, and it wasn't pretty. But I have learned out of that. I think over the last 12 to 18 months I have been working with the media. For me, the team always comes first, and if it is better for the team, then that is what you have to do. The biggest help has come in how to approach it.